a buzz.
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you suppose it is? Oh, that helped.
You said you can download it?
Well, it says there, but then it
Yeah.
doesn't. I got the same error message that you did.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
you
sorry.
did? You weren't there. Oh, right, that was That's.
So like you go, yeah,
Oh.
so like pull up a separate page and see if you can just return.
Oh, this way here.
Yeah. And then probably you and I push it
Usually at this time, when we're all here and gathered, this is when the teams will meet as a group. So if you signed up to be the team leader for Disciplined Mind, could you raise your hand right now so you can each look around and see who those other people are? Okay, so so you might want to talk to each other at break just to figure out what you have in mind and piggyback off of each other. Like I said, everybody can do their own thing. You have about 30 minutes to do what it is you're going to do, and then it is your job as team leader to post to that discussion board the aha, the big moment, the conclusion, the summary, whatever those things are. And if you brought in an article, it'd be nice to put the article in with it, or if you showed a YouTube, you could put a link to the YouTube or those types of things with it as well. The purpose of the summary of what the team did is because otherwise some really great thing happens over here, and these people all wish they knew why they were laughing. You know, and so so you have to tell one another what it is you were doing. The purpose of having the team meet is to put applications to these more philosophical things that we're reading. And so when you see Disciplined Mind, discipline has layers. If you remember our circle, there's that layer of leaving a legacy, and there's another layer of what does that mean to us personally, and what does that mean to us as educators, and what does that mean to us as researchers. And so there's all those different, and so one group may be talking about discipline in terms of code of conduct, or another person talking about discipline is talking about how they can get themselves to write when they don't want to. Those are both a discipline. And then there's the whole idea of a discipline, of having this discipline of knowledge that you study and follow, that is what I always call that area of expertise, that thing that you're going through and searching to be the specialist in, whatever that is. So they can be very different from one another. And the first group can if the person comes in on discipline and they have you read an article and discuss the article and so forth, if you want to do knock-knock jokes the next time, as long as the knock-knock jokes have something to do with being synthesizing, you don't have to do what the person before you did, and you don't have to do what the group across the room does. That's why I just said look around one another, because sometimes that first one, they like to have a little bit of touching base to see what those things are that they're thinking about. So that will be at this time, the next time we meet together. It is difficult for my mind to wrap around that what you do between now and next time is the pre-class for next time. What you're going to see is in that pre-class is some leftovers from the previous class and some push into the following one. So where you are right now, if you follow down your list in the modules, you should have module 1 all done. The quiz was not explained well originally, that it was an extra point. So when you look at your list of grades over there, you will see an extra point for attempting the quiz, because you and I are just figuring this out. In March, they're going to send you a reaction to Canvas from the university. And so one of the reasons that I volunteered, besides I like to early adopt, I mean that's just part of what I do, But I also thought that this group would be a really, really good group to look at the system and see what works, what doesn't work, and give good advice to the whole campus as opposed to an undergraduate who just kind of takes things in and doesn't realize the difference between I have a professor that doesn't know how to do this or the system doesn't work well. You can tell probably both of those things are happening at the same time because I'm learning just about as fast as I have to get the next thing going. But that's why I put a quiz in, so that you could try taking a quiz and seeing what that looks like and seeing how that particular, a discussion board and the options that you have. But by the way, if you haven't been reading one another's discussion boards, you really should, because I try to put in prompts that are, so what do you think kind of stuff, reflective types of things. But people are adding in all that richness of their examples of their experiences or things that they've read, or and just a different way of looking at things. So as you go through, I do suggest sometime that you just page through the discussion board. It is an interesting thing and worth your time to do. So I put up on the announcements there that tonight there's a summarizer, and you may work on the summarizer all during the class if you want to. Right now it says find 8 terms, words, phrases, or something that were important tonight and define them in 3 words or less. And so that's great feedback for me for what mattered to you, what stuck, what counted, and what questions you have, because you'll use words that you aren't quite sure of, and you'll use words that mattered to you. So you can work on that and put that in your folder. And I manually put those points in. So tomorrow I pull out all the folders, I put all the points in, and so those points show up as summarizer for this Lit Review class on your list of scores. The activator, I don't put in those scores until next Sunday, because somebody that needs to take it home and finish it, again, if you wrote on it, take a picture of it, email it to me. I will tell you. I just send you back an email, say I've got it, and then you'll see the score that goes on from that. So I'm trying to make it be not, it's a lot of little back and forth doing this way. I'm trying to make it not be painful to you to do that, but it is really great from my side of the desk, the feedback that I get, and I know where you are and what you're thinking. Just reading what you had to say about what you feel about qualitative and quantitative research, really, you should read one another, because a lot of you resonated with one another, feeling the same types of things. And it also led me realize that I scared you guys off on mixed methods too much. I have had people at this point want to do this study that's like this, so that's kind of why I'm a little bit, you need to do a study like this that you can get graduated with. So I'm kind of like, let's not do this, and so, but you don't need to be afraid of doing the mixed methods. It will come out of what it is you really want to know. And if it's too big, that's why you have a chair of your dissertation committee who says, that's nice, do this much and do the rest of it after you graduate. And let's get graduated. And so sometimes in the mixed methods, we only do slice off the first half of it and call that the dissertation, and then you can do the follow-up later on. So anyway, a lot of interesting notes that I've taken since the last time that we've met. From now on, it will not be the same. This is still going to be the nuts and bolts of writing and so forth. I'm not going to abandon you with that, but most of that will happen on the pre-classes. Most of that will happen in the pre-classes, and we'll spend our time together delving into those minds and what that really means. So tonight, I want to spend one more evening in direct work on literature review, and help you with my experience with that. I graduated on Friday and started teaching this on Monday, and I'm like, what do I know? I mean, they know I sat right there in the desk next to them going, I don't know, in the last semester, so how can I possibly add something to that? Well, I've been down the road, at least, and so now I've been down the road with many, many, many of your peers. And so some of this stuff is according to Kaiser. And just realize that, and don't take everything as according to there's only one way of doing this. There are many, many ways of doing it. And when you get to this point in your career, you may invent a new way of doing it. You may say this is the way that works for this writer or this work of writing. And so I'm trying to give you some guidance so that when you're out there at 10 o'clock on Sunday night or whenever it is that that there isn't anybody there to help you, that you've got some materials, you've got some sources to go to, but you also have some expertise that you're ready to do this. I will be happy if when you get to December, you say, I've got this way that I like to write this kind of material down. I may not have it all done. Of course you aren't going to have it all done. But I at least know the system that works for me, and I know the flow of language that works for me as well. So let's look at some reviews of literature tonight. I want to be able to, by the way, on class 2, if you go to class 2, this is there also. So if that helps you with that, you can go to the beginning of tonight's class, and I do put the PowerPoint up there for you as well. I am recording. This recording will also be up there as well. So if there's some reason that I said something golden, let me know what it was and come back to it. So I'd like to be able to, that you could be able to define what a literature review is and explain why this type of writing is important. My experience of writing a literature review, as I probably have told you before, when I was in this program, is I was getting ready to write on my proposal, and I said, what do I do? They said, have your literature review done in 8 weeks. I said, what do I do? And they said, well, you wrote a paper for Dr. Hartzell, didn't you? I said, yeah, lots of them. That's a literature review. Well, that really wouldn't give me a whole lot of help on what that was, because that wasn't exactly a literature review. Yeah, there's some parts to it, but I'm going to try to get you down to that you know and can articulate what these things are. We're going to talk about how literature is different in quantitative work than it is in qualitative for 2 reasons. One is so that and when you consume it, you realize why it looks different or sounds different or is in different places in what you're reading. And also, as you're starting to gather it, that you gather some from both of these approaches. You want to have this kind of round, broad understanding of your specialty, and so that understanding how those 2 types of approach make your study different is one of the things we're going to do tonight. And then finally, I'm going to go directly into the 5 steps that Cresswell talks about in 5 steps in writing a literature review, and give you some tips and tricks along with that as well. So to make that long, boring speech that I have to give tonight a little more interesting, we're going to play Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Now, I took the information on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire from the book, The Literature Review, 6 Steps to Success, which I know none of you have read. So, I expect all of us to guess and beg for lifelines and all that kind of good stuff. So, that otherwise it wouldn't be very, if you can't guess it, this game isn't very much fun. And I have real cash prize up here for you, but it's not. My mom got a call this afternoon from Jamaica that she'd won $350,000, which she knew much better than to do anything about. Our top prize tonight is $1. So anyway, your contestant number is on your handout. It should be written in a green number on the front of your handout. And so I will be calling by number who's going to answer our questions tonight. So here comes our first question. Again, this comes from this source, so you can use common sense, you can use all your good guessing techniques, or you could know the answer. So the penny question. The penny question. A basic literature review summarizes the current knowledge, evaluates existing knowledge, frames a research topic, or all of the above. Contestant 10.
Oh, goodness.
Hold whole penny's at stake.
A whole penny. I'm gonna go with D.
D is correct. It does do all of those things. There's different
Is that your final answer?
Yeah, well, we'll get to those questions later on. They get a little harder.
Yeah.
A literature review. There are basic ones, and then there are ones that are called the advanced literature review. An advanced literature review is one where you not only do these things, but you also show where there's a hole in the literature that you're going to fill. That's the kind of thing that's going to be in that chapter 2 of our literature. So we will do the basic things in this class. But when you advance this to the place where it actually is going to sit in a large work, like a thesis or dissertation, it also answers the question, what don't we know? You can do that stuff now too. It doesn't hurt to do it ahead. So a literature review is a written summary, and I'm going to talk a bit more about not just going to journal articles to get it. It's very easy to go, oh, look, Chris Library, go down that list of journal articles. You're going to get only a certain age of information and a certain type of thing when you do that. So it's a summary of all kinds of documents, not just journal articles. Its purpose is to describe the current state and sometimes the past. Now, sometimes the past doesn't really matter. You know, it isn't about what did we do 50 years ago. If we're going to talk about computers in the classroom, it's not going to be 100-year, historical view. Whereas if you're going to do math computation, you might go back and talk about the caveman and their stones, and it depends how long of historical and what current is by what you're studying. But it does talk about the current state. And I will tell you the one thing that people don't search for right away, and you don't want to search for right away, is other people that are studying the same thing. But as you get farther down this pathway, you will want to be looking and saying, okay, if I'm studying one-to-one computers in middle school, I need to know who else has studied this and how they study it and so forth. But that comes later. That's not the basic place where you go. You do organize your lit review by topic, and the topic can be the 1950s, the 1960s, the 1970s. Probably not. The topics are probably going to be coming out of the story you want to tell, because you're going to lead people through a story on a literature review from beginning to end, and you're going to put subtopics in there like signposts along the line. And you also are going to show that there's need for further study, that we don't know everything about whatever this is, and where are the places. But be careful about saying, just because you've been to the library and you didn't find anything on, I have had people say things like, there's been very little study done on one-to-one computers. Well, they haven't found it yet because maybe it wasn't listed under one-to-one. Maybe it was listed under, technology integration of something else, and they just haven't found it. So you say, how do I say it hasn't been found? You get the experts to tell you that it hasn't been found. If the experts say, this is a new area, this is where we don't know a lot about this, then it isn't just me saying, hey, I haven't found it yet, so there's nothing out there. Okay. By the way, where this is coming from is the book that I told you to ask Santa for. And you don't have to buy the newest one by any means, but Cresswell's research book has so many good places in it. I mean, this is where I got this information from. There's a whole chapter on doing a literature review. And he's very good at either telling you in a cookbook way, so you can go to the back or the front of the book and find what you're looking for, or you can go to the chapter and read stuff about it that you didn't even know you didn't know. It's not something that you're going to have as a textbook at this level in any case, but the other nice thing is at the end of each chapter there's an example of what he's been talking about. So again, this is one I'd go out and, I got the 5th edition, but there's nothing the matter with the 2nd. Nothing the matter with, So I'd go out and search for a used copy of that because things like this, I'm talking about it now, and it may be a year from now when you're really pushing to get a large literature review completed, and it's good to have somebody that you can trust at your elbow. Again, this comes from Cresswell, and he says that we do literature reviews. One of the things we do, that teachers assign them to students to build their knowledge base, but they also assign them to students to get them out. The same way I gave you a scavenger hunt tonight, just so that you got on the site and got around and saw what was out there and so forth. That's true of a literature review too. If you're thinking about getting into an area and studying it, one of the most important things to do is go out and read in that area so that you know whether your ideas are jibing with where the field is going, whether there are two ways of thinking about, what are the other perspectives on, all that good stuff. So having the skills to investigate so that when the next new thing comes up, and you're not going to write a dissertation on it, you still can figure out how can I get to quality evidence of whatever that topic is. A literature review helps to fill in the gaps of what we know, because right now if we put out a literature review, I put one in your handout on bullying. Now every person here could write a 3-page paper and right up and down the edges and around the corners on bullying in here. But you probably haven't done a literature review on what the field says. What the literature review tries to do is look at the different perspectives, look at the different philosophies of it, give you that overall 360 view of what's going on and who else has studied this thing. I had a professor that called the literature review the nest that your study sits in. Now you can do a literature review that just stands alone. You can read articles that are literature reviews. That's the ones in your handout tonight. Those were articles that were published and they're literature reviews. We're thinking of it more often though that it's holding up and supporting and surrounding the question that you have. So it's all the stuff that you rest upon, all of the things that went before, all of the other ideas that went around this thing. And so when you say, now here is my new piece of this, here's my new creation, you've rested it in something that shows that you have the expertise as well as you know what everything is going on around you. So it also creates a knowledge base, and it provides models and examples for you to use. Oh, I think, we're on to the nickel question. The nickel question, again, this is a guess because I haven't talked about it, I hope. A lit review is different than a research study because literature review has no new data to analyze. Literature review has no thesis to defend. A research study has no literature review. A research study has a purpose statement. 15. Oh, okay. Can any of them? Can you cross that? Can you take any off the table?
Well, I think research studies, some have lit reviews.
Yeah,
don't
that sounds like a good bet with me.
they? It really wouldn't matter if they have a purpose statement or not, so I would go to A and B.
Okay. Let's poll the audience. She's thinking of A or B. How many would think she should say A? Okay, so you can look around and see who says that. How many of them think she should say B? Well, you're still kind of in no man's land. Is there a friend you'd like to talk it over with?
Anybody want to?
Yeah, you can tell because they look at you. If they look away, they don't want to talk to you about it. You want to guess? It's a whole nickel.
I'll guess A.
You guessed right.
Okay.
I thought you were reading it that way. It has no new data. A research study has new, a new question that you're going to answer. But it does have a thesis. And so sometimes people think that they start to do a literature review, and right in the middle of it they'll say, and the purpose of this study is to, I'm like, no, you're doing a literature review. There's no purpose to the study in the middle of your literature review. There's a literature review and the purpose in the middle of your research study, but not the other way around. There isn't this new question. You say, but I know what my question's going to be, and that's why I'm doing this research. That's not why you're doing the research literature review. Remember, that's the nest, it's not the egg. But it does have a thesis, and the thesis is, this is what the current and past literature says about this topic. The topic, but it can be a defendable type of thesis. I mean, it can be, if you're going to talk about a certain approach to teaching science or a certain way of preparing new principles or that type of thing, you aren't going to be really argumentative and say, these people are wrong and I'm right. You're going to say, this is what these people say, this is what my district does, this is what other people are doing, and what the pros and cons are. But you know what? There's always bias in it. There's always your own personal slant on it. You will choose articles or not choose articles based on whether you like them or not. So right there, you're starting to say, these people, I'm not going to listen to them. So there is always a thesis behind what it is that you're doing. But the thesis is usually, this is what we know at this point. This is what the field's saying at this time. Now, qualitative and quantitative dissertations or journal articles will have literature review in different places for different reasons. Now, you think quantitative. Now, that's why I did all that quantitative stuff with you. It was not because you have to decide on anything with that, but it's all out there, and as you read, you're going to see differences in that, and as you start to write, you're going to find yourself gravitating toward one. But anyway, in a quantitative study, so when I get to the part where I'm seeing the results, I'm going to be seeing tables, graphs, lists. There's some things that have been counted or measured in some way or other. In that case, the literature is deductive. That it is substantially toward the beginning of the document. When I see a quantitative study, I see research at the beginning that says, why is this a problem? That is something you might want to write in the margin right now. You have to have literature that says, why is whatever I'm studying a problem? It might not be anything you talk about this semester at all. But as you're reading and you happen to see that, you should be marking that in some way about, this is going to help me explain up front, we've got to do this study because this thing is a problem. And the problem can just be we don't know enough about it. I mean, it doesn't have to be, a crucial, critical life and death why we should do it. But if we don't know up front why we're doing the study, we're not probably going to get to chapter 2. So up front, every study has why we need to do this, and it has literature where other people, sometimes that you have a great quote from somebody, you go, oh my gosh. I mean, some of you were already doing it. It's like, Einstein said this, or John Dewey believed that, or, or current people are telling us things, and it helps give you some expertise to have that. Sometimes people start with statistics that they get out of literature, We know that 68% of this group graduates from high school, but only 28% of this group graduates from the same high school and we're going to, this is a problem. So a statistic can do it. And sometimes it is summarizing what's happened briefly, and that's in a different place. That's at the beginning. The substantial amount I'm talking about here is the chapter 2. In a quantitative, chapter 2 is long because you know what your question is. You know if you're going to study whether having students pre-take the ACT improves their ACT scores. Or you're going to measure a survey whether or not teachers like the new summer institute that you've put in, or whatever those things are. So at that point, you know all the variables. You know all the stuff that people need to understand to answer your question. Qualitative is going to be a different story. At the end, in chapter 5, you're going to use that. So you come up and you say, well, the teachers did like our new summer institute. So what? Well, other studies have shown that preparing teachers during the summer helps with that summer slump or whatever those things are. And you're going to use other studies to help you explain. It's not just my little one study, because you may study 35 students or 15 teachers or have a focus group of 6 parents. And the only way you can generalize that into a bigger group of people is to go to other studies. Now, qualitative, okay, now this is where you're out there having a focus group, interviewing people, having them write narratives to you, okay, it's the storytelling, the buttermilk stuff. In that case, you don't know at the beginning what the people are going to say. So you really don't know. So imagine you're doing a study and you want to know about the impact and how important family primary caregivers reading to children before the age of 3 is. Okay? I could survey all those people, in which case I would know what my lit review is going to be about, because I would know what my questions in my survey are going to ask them, and so I know what my factors are. But over here, where I'm going to go out and I'm going to go into homes and talk to mothers of toddlers about their habits and their understanding of this early reading environment, I don't know what they're going to say. They may come up and I may find out that many of them tell me having a routine is very important, that bedtime routine and that type of thing. Or a barrier is being able to have the time to get the new books, or the importance of repeating the same story over and over. I don't know. That's just me guessing what those things are. So your lit review is usually minimal at the beginning. Of course, I'm going to talk about why it's a problem not to have parents or caregivers reading to children. You know, I can go into the research of what that has to do and what's going on. And I can see what other people are doing that are studying early reading in families. But I really can't talk about all my factors, because it has to come more at the end, because it's gonna what those people say. So if they say about the importance of routine, well, I didn't study that in my lit review at all, so you get to go out and do that study then. So when 2 people are sitting in 2 chairs next to each other and they're saying, well, I'm proposing next month, and the next person's saying, I can't propose for 6 months, they're probably doing a different method. And they may both walk across the stage the same day. But where you have to, so very often, qualitative gets to proposal real fast, because there's only so much that they can do until they go out and talk to people. Where quantitative gets to proposal after chapter 3 later, but once they get in, they go in, they get their survey, they crunch their numbers, you know, they get from proposal to graduation faster. Neither one of those is to say I should do one or the other because of that. Realize when you're doing mixed methods, very often you're doing one and then doing the other. So if you're going to go out and interview the parents and then use what they have to say to write a survey and go out and survey people, that's why I'm telling you where the length of time can happen, because of one causing, you can't really do both of those at the same time, because I don't know until I talk to the people what the answers are, or I don't know until I give my survey what I'm going to interview on. So that's why I'm a little leery on that. But if you don't make the scope too large, you can do a mixed method. Larger scope, like you're going to ask 500 teachers, you're probably going to survey them. You're not going to go out and interview them. You know, larger scopes of things oftentimes are more quantitative, because you're counting large numbers of things. Where you have a small population, if I want to talk to fathers of autistic children, I'm not going to find 85 of those. I'm not gonna find the 30 that you hear in statistics that you need for significance. But in my story, if I find 3 of them, I can find significance from sitting across from one father and listening to his story. So, qualitative and quantitative show up for different times in different places. But in both cases, did you both hear, in both of them, there's up at the top, why is this a problem? And at the bottom, so what? So I'm always watching for those 2 things as